Hello, everyone. I'm Yoko. I've noticed that many of the events happening in China aren't being accurately conveyed to other countries, so I've decided to share information that I've gathered in English on this channel. Since I collect information from various sources, I would appreciate your comments on the content of my videos. English is not my native language, so I use AI speakers to generate the audio to ensure that I convey the information correctly. If you enjoy the content, please consider subscribing to the channel and showing your support. Today, I'd like to talk about marriage in China. In China, there's an advertisement that says it's better to laugh while riding a bicycle with a man than to end up crying in a BMW by marrying a wealthy person. In the past, there were quite a few matchmaking TV shows, and in fact, in China, there have been shows where people go on matchmaking dates for quite some time. This line, spoken by a 20-year-old woman about 10 years ago, reflects the values of that time. In other words, it's a discussion about the criteria for marriage being financial strength. Even if you become unhappy marrying early with a wealthy person, the point is that you don't want to marry someone without financial means. At that time and even now, there is considerable criticism of this way of thinking, but it's said that many women still hold such views. Of course, there may be people in Japan who also think this way, but there are specific reasons why this perspective is prevalent in China, which I'd like to introduce. There are primarily two main reasons. One is that in China, marriage is not just about marrying an individual, it has strong implications for family relationships. In other words, the woman's choice of a partner can influence the fate of her family. If a woman marries a wealthy person, her family can become richer, so for women, marriage is not solely an individual matter. I think this is something that is rarely considered in today's Japan. Japanese women generally do not think that their marriage will significantly affect the fate of their families. However, in China, this is quite important. For example, if a Japanese man marries a Chinese woman, it actually means getting involved with her entire family. Consequently, various issues can arise later on. Essentially, it means that you have to take care of the family's affairs. Another point, which may not have gone as far in Japan at the moment but can be a concern, is that China is a society with extreme income inequality. The difference between having money and not having it is substantial. People in China often prioritize economic strength over affection or other factors, given that the wealth gap is so vast. Despite significant income disparities in Japan, some people are content with modest lives. However, in China, if you fall to the lower end of the income spectrum, life becomes extremely difficult. Not only that, but you'll also have to carry the burden of future uncertainty. In China, marriage typically leads to having children, which is already a significant issue in terms of education. There has been an educational gap from early childhood in China, such as disparities in the quality of kindergartens. Therefore, even if you don't have much money, it's not something you can easily ignore. China may be heading in a similar direction as Japan in this regard, but Japan hasn't reached the point where the wealth gap is as extreme as it is in China. This is the backdrop that forces people to consider economic factors. By the way, the living standards of Chinese people that Japanese people receive information about from TV shows and other sources typically represent those of relatively well-off individuals within China. The overwhelming majority of people in China still lead rather modest lives. So, women who are confident in their looks in China often state that they will only marry someone who is wealthy. I don't know how Chinese men perceive this, but at least for me, I think many people would agree that they wouldn't want to marry someone without financial means. This is the reality in China. This is a story from over 10 years ago, but recently, the current situation of the person who uttered this phrase has been widely shared on social media, attracting renewed attention. The online world can be quite unforgiving. Statements made thoughtlessly during one's youth can resurface on the internet, even without intentional spreading. In some cases, these past statements can come back to haunt individuals, and it's especially important for young people to be cautious about what they say and share online. Now, let's take a look at what's been circulating recently. The information I'm about to share was posted on China's social media platform Weibo on October 5. Since this information is quite recent, there's some skepticism about its authenticity. According to this information, the woman we mentioned earlier received over 200,000 yen in gifts, around 4 million yen in Japanese currency exchange. This may or may not be the catalyst, but the woman, who had a boyfriend at the time, started a relationship with a man who sent her the gifts and began living with him. Subsequently, this man divorced his wife and planned to marry the woman in question. The exact sum of money and the real estate in Shanghai that he gifted to the woman are not specified. It's unclear whether this was the woman's own choice or not, but she may have faced trouble with her previous boyfriend, potentially leading to her being taken away. Nevertheless, this information suggests that she is currently involved in a complicated situation. Regarding this, the comments from Chinese netizens express sentiments like "serves her right, this was bound to happen, and it's laughable." I believe these comments reflect the perspective of people lower down the social and economic ladder in China. In societies with a substantial wealth gap, those at the higher end often say they prefer wealthy partners and enjoy showcasing their financial status to attract such individuals. However, in reality, the majority of people lower down the ladder lead difficult lives. They don't have the luxury of prioritizing wealth over personal connection and happiness. While Japan also faces widening wealth disparities, the situation is less extreme than in China. In China, there's a growing polarization between the rich and the poor. Japan is often criticized for its wealth gap, but compared to China, the situation here is much more manageable. It's essential to be aware of the overall situation in China, including the majority of people who are struggling financially, rather than focusing on the affluent minority. While many Japanese people may think it's better to marry someone they connect with on a personal level rather than prioritize financial status, the living conditions of those without financial means can be very challenging. Therefore, it's important for people to understand the realities of those who aren't well off, not just the few who are thriving. In any case, the experiences and perspectives of poor individuals are closer to the reality of China, so it's essential to be informed about those aspects to get a more accurate picture of the country. China has indeed made economic progress, but the living standards and mindset of the average Chinese person may differ significantly from those of the average Japanese person. This concludes the discussion for now. I'll delve into the topic of car graveyards that has been trending in Japan in a separate video.